Welcome to the Indian Sun. I'm Indira Lystrom. My guest today is Samantha Gash, who probably needs no introduction. A former lawyer and an endurance athlete, she made history by becoming the first woman and the youngest person to complete the 4 Desert Grand Slam Ultra Marathon races in 2010. In 2016, she ran from west to the east of India, covering over 3,000 kilometers in 76 days. An inspirational speaker, World Vision and Royal Flying Doctor Service Goodwill Ambassador, entrepreneur, she also featured in the Australian television series Survivor. Next week, Samantha is leading a global relief run to raise funds for the people of India devastated by COVID-19. We will talk about that and more. Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so nice to see your face again.
Let's first begin with the relief run that you are spearheading next week.
So the relief run is as you kind of said, it's a global virtual run, which means participants who register for it can do it anywhere, anytime over the weekend of June 11 to June 13. And all of your registration fee is going to World Vision's India COVID-19 appeal. So it's a completely philanthropic, move for good, supporting those specifically in vulnerable communities who have, obviously going through COVID in a really devastating way and have very stretched, limited resources, particularly when it comes to medical resources, but also thinking even long term, it's not just going to be a health crisis, but it's also going to be a crisis relating to access to education, children having roofs over their heads, access to food. Like it's going to be a long stemming issue, the COVID-19 crisis currently in India. So it's an opportunity for people in Australia and all over the world to support those who are really in need through our footsteps. It's the simplest thing. And we have a whole lot of distances from a 3K kids event, 5, 10, 21. And I think a lot of people asked us for a 50. So we put in a 50-kilometre run there. It's a really great way of kind of doing something for people who need our support right now.
What a great initiative. Now just tell us about, how this concept is. It's a virtual run, right? So people register, log in, just let us know how all of this is done.
Yeah, so we actually have done a relief run before, but for the Australian bushfire crisis. So my friend and I created this reliefrun.com.au back in 2020, and it kind of went viral. In 12 days, we raised $1.1 million for the bushfire relief crisis, with 19,000 registered participants from every continent on the planet supporting Australia. So we already had the infrastructure in play. All people need to do is jump on the website, reliefrun.com.au, select their distance, pay the money, and then they just run over the weekend. And then they have a link to put their distance and time in, and we'll provide you with a leaderboard. We've got a whole bunch of digital goodie bag. So there's, a couple of incentives for people to be able to participate. But I think the greatest incentive is moving is great for your mental health, your physical health, and then moving for others is just an incredible way of, we're so lucky to be able to move. Even those who are in lockdown in Victoria right now, like myself, we still have the ability to be able to go for a 5-10K run within the time frame.
And how many participants are you expecting? Have people registered a lot? I mean, this is, of course, initial stage, but because the run is next week.
Yeah, well, we're hoping to raise $250,000. That's our goal. We just reached $180,000. So, hoping we get a bunch more registrations over the next week. People love to sign up late to things. And so we've got people all over Australia and in different parts of the world as well taking part. And we have an amazing partnership with ANZ that they're matching every registration. So it's $50 to register, and every time you do that, just know that it's getting matched. So $100 then gets made as a donation to World Vision India COVID-19 appeal. So it's a great way of being able to really make an impact with your footsteps.
Yeah. Hopefully this will get some traction too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I've said to a lot of people, obviously the money is so important. It's actually really critical. It's not just going to be a game changer. It's going to be a life changer for so many people in India. But I also remember back to the bushfires and the knowledge that people around the world were running for Australia. There was something intangible about that connectivity and that people cared. And I think what people sometimes discount is the power to people's mental state by knowing that other people are thinking of them. And so I've had a lot of my friends from India reach out to me going, thank you so much for sharing what's happening, because the media information of what's truly happening on the ground, I'd say, is pretty limited in proportion to the crisis. And so I think it really does a lot to people's mental well-being to know that they're not forgotten and that people care and that they are using their time and their footsteps to do something for them. I think that's really, really powerful.
Very true. Now, we know your love affair with India began, a few years ago. And for our audience, we'd like you to share what all you learned in that, 76 days run in 2016.
I've traveled to India 6 times now. Yeah. And so it's been a decade, a love affair of traveling to India. And I've traveled to India pretty much every time in some kind of connection to run. I mean, the first time I went there, I went to, started in Delhi and I ran with a whole group of local runners, and then went to Leh Ladakh and ran between Kardangla and Tanglangla. And I just fell in love with like the culture and the richness and the diversity and the landscape. And it was just it's a place that allows me to be very present. You think just moment to moment as opposed to 10 steps ahead. And in terms of my own well-being, I've appreciated that ability to be present. I've made some of my greatest friends through my experiences in India. And I think it definitely influences the way I see the world through what I've experienced in India. I've definitely learned to be grateful for the smallest things, to not sweat the big stuff. And I've always been amazed by the resilience of particularly women that I've met in those Himalayan communities who look after their families and their communities, often experiencing quite significant hardship, but the way that the women that I've met kind of come together and focus on supporting and connection and community as a way of overcoming adversity, I find it incredibly inspiring. So I've definitely thought back to those moments in challenges in my own life and going, okay, I've seen resilience in the best example. Now I can utilize some of those techniques in my own life.
And you have a lot of things on your plate. I know, you are a motivational speaker, you're an entrepreneur. What are the current projects that you're involved in right now?
Oh, gosh. My husband's like, you need to narrow it down. To be honest, I pretty much have wiped my schedule for the last month to focus on the relief run. A couple of weeks ago, I was in the Northern Territory. I have a company called Her Trails, which is about getting women out into the outdoors, experiencing nature and moving their bodies with other women. And I spent 1 week on the Larapinta Trail with 8 women. And there's something incredible that happens when women make time for themselves. I think it distills what's really important. And I came back from that trip and I was like, I would need to bring back the relief run to support India. And so I just pretty much wiped my schedule for a couple of weeks and I said, this is where I'm dedicating my time in. So I always have a lot of projects on the go, but the way I balance it is I always have a focal point. So there's other projects happening, but I give all my energy into one area at a time to allow it to be as successful as possible. And so, yeah, Her Trails is that, I do running programs and, for women all around the world, it's a virtual program. I do keynote speaking, but I'm also in lockdown right now. So also trying to focus on the family and, work out how the next kind of week's going to look like. And, for anyone else who's in lockdown right now, that's always a juggling act, particularly when you have a family and you have, children and you have to re-engineer what your days look like to kind of do the things that you would normally do.
Hmm. And I wanted to ask you this question on motherhood. How has it changed your work and how have you been balancing your professional and personal life?
I mean, I don't really, part of me says I don't believe in balance.
Hmm.
I think when you really believe in something, you have to commit and go all in. And I think the traditional view of balance would say that's not balance, but I actually think it is balance because I think it means you're aware of what's important and you throw your energy into it. So since becoming a mother, I think for me to pursue a certain goal, it has to tick a lot more boxes than maybe it used to. You know, maybe I used to kind of run it, you know, go and travel somewhere because I liked the idea of the adventure. And now I need to like the idea of the adventure. It needs to work for my professional life. It needs to be able to kind of make me feel personally stretched and extended in that kind of juicy, going out of your comfort zone kind of way. So many things kind of have to make more sense for me to take time away from my family. But it's also been the greatest joy of my life because it, again, like I think anything that helps you remember about appreciation for the little moments and not getting too caught up in the big stuff and the messy stuff is beautiful. And I think motherhood grounds you beautifully. And it also makes lockdown a little bit easier in some way. Yeah, well, you know what it's like. I mean, I think last year you couldn't help but kind of go, okay, well, what's important? If all the balls are being thrown up in the air because nothing is looking the same and everything's uncertain, the way that I coped through it is I said, okay, now I get a choice which balls I have to consciously pick up and which ones do I now feel like I can drop. And so I think it was actually, there was challenge, but there was also an opportunity to think about your life in a different way. And often we don't get that opportunity when we're just kind of like churning, moving ahead constantly.
As an endurance athlete, you run thousands of kilometers all over the world. How does raising hundreds and thousands of dollars for social causes compare to that in terms of mental strength and strategy?
They're very similar. They're very similar in many ways. I mean, they're all about a goal and then creating the strategy about how you're going to achieve the goal. And so, like, really the way I plan a fundraising goal, the way I, do my businesses, the way I plan to run across the country, decline. The way I plan, they're all the same. Like I kind of work out what's the end state. What do I need to get there? What are small milestones along the way? What team can I build? How can I crystallize my communication strategy? How can I share it with people in my network? They're all really, really similar. Interestingly, though, when I ran across India in 2016, it was both an awareness campaign as well as a fundraising. I think I've definitely raised more through the Relief Run campaign, which is about getting other people to move their footsteps versus to just watch me move my footsteps. And I think we're in a day and an age where people want to be a part of something. They don't just want to watch someone, have a transformative experience and share their perspective on it. They want to be a part of the experience, which is why I think these experiential style Move for Good campaigns are really successful.
I'm sure a lot of women would like to know about, your mental strength training. I think that's very important in what you do. Share us some tips.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to know is like everyone is born to be resilient. Like human beings are designed to cope with adversity. I think somewhere along the way we maybe lose a little bit because of the constructs of society. And so if you're thinking about your mental strength, your resilience, I think it's really powerful to remember that you have it inside you to be able to cope with adversity and change and obstacles that come your way. It's often about how we frame that challenge. I'll say like my biggest thing is I'm a realistic optimist. So when something horrific happens, whatever it is within my control, outside of my control, I first acknowledge the nature of it. And I don't judge myself for feeling bad that I'm affected by that in some way, whether emotionally or physically or whatever, financially. I think owning the situation and how you feel about it is an important step to then move beyond. So I do that really quickly. I'm like, oh no, another lockdown. Oh, I've lost my source of income for the next week. Oh, I was meant to go to the Northern Territory. I can no longer do that. I've got to change all my admin plans. I have to spend time on the phone with Qantas. Fun, fun, fun. And I go, that sucks. And then I go, so what's the next best plan? If that plan's now out the window, considering all the circumstances in front of me, how can I move forward? And I think the biggest thing that I learned last year is, you might have experienced it. A lot of us felt like we couldn't create plans for the future because you didn't know what the future was going to look like, and you were terrified of the plan and the goal being taken away from you. I am wired to have goals and dreams. So I now still have them, but I'm very fluid on when I have to do them. And so I'm still progressing, I'm still training, I'm still building business ideas, but I'm not so fixated on the end state. I'm appreciating the process in order to get there. So I think all those little strategies help with resilience. And the biggest one for me also is like circuit breakers. When you're at a state of overwhelm, how can you break that moment to get yourself grounded and to reduce the overwhelm in your mind? Nature for me is the quickest way. Whether you like to run, walk, or literally just go outside and look at the sun and have it hit you, and then or look at a sunrise or a sunset or look at the trees, it is an incredible fast-tracking way of rejuvenating your mind and your body. And so that's a little tip that I have for anyone listening. Make sure you make time to be in nature. And I think a recent study came out that you need at least 2 hours in nature-filled environments in order to be a positive driver to your well-being. You don't need to run. You don't need to even walk. You just need to be in nature, like see grass, see trees, look at the sky, get the sun on your skin. And I think being in winter right now, where, you start working inside, it's all dark in your house. I mean, my study looks like a bunker. Sometimes I have to consciously go get outside for lunchtime or stop working at 4 p.m. because by 5 p.m. it's going to be dark. So you've got to kind of create little tools and tricks to look after yourself.
And I think we're very blessed to be in Victoria, where we have such a lovely, layout of greenery and, nature, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And the more you look after yourself, the more you're able to look after other people and the things that you care about. And so self-care is critical. And I really kind of push that messaging specifically for women. And it's not that women are just stoic and just go, oh, it's always about everyone else. But I think it's very easy to use your finite energy on making sure that your family is okay or the house is in order. And then if you always deprioritize yourself in that order, you're never going to be able to be at your best, and therefore you can't give at your best as well.
Okay, coming back to the 2 last questions. We know there's COVID and there's uncertainty, but what are your future projects?
Oh, I'd really love to run across Nepal. I am very invested in community, and whilst I say I'd really love to run across Nepal, I also realise I've developed a lot of skills over my years of being able to run, and it's also really powerful to now be able to share those. And so this Her Trails community that I have, it's about kind of creating programs that support women to build their resilience, to be self-reliant, and to also find joy in the everyday. And not just to find that through movement, but to then incorporate that into every aspect of our lives, the way we raise our children, the way we show up at work, the way we are with our partner, the way we are with our friends. And so those are kind of the things that are important to me over the next couple of years. I never think too far ahead. I've been like that way for the last decade, and that's also served me really well during COVID, because I remember when I grew up, I used to think that you'd always have a 5 and a 10-year plan. I don't think that's so much a thing anymore. Like, we have things that we want to do and dreams that we want to see realised. But I don't think people are as kind of rigid with the 5 to 10-year goal as perhaps when our parents were growing up.
Mm-hmm. Any last thoughts that you wanted to add in regards to the run that would be of value to our audience?
I just think that Australia is not going to be over with the pandemic until the rest of the world is. And I implore people to remember that we're global citizens. And if you are able to contribute, it's an amazing thing to be able to do. Not just because I think there's, we typically are usually able to travel all around the world. And so we receive the benefits of being global citizens. And therefore, I think there's a responsibility that comes with that to be kind of remove the blinkers every now and again and go, there is extreme suffering that's happening in a part of the world that is completely linked to Australia. India accounts for 1/6 of the world's population. We are all deeply connected to India, whether we realize it or not. Our business, our personal lives. We'll have friends in our kind of work environment that have family members in India, and you might not even know that. So I would first say reach out to anyone that you know who is in India or has family members in India and just check on them, because I think it's a really, really challenging time. And also, I just would love it if you would sign up for the Relief Fund so we can do our best to kind of support those who are going through a really crappy time right now. And if there's something you can do, it's a great thing to do. So relieffund.com.au. And I just thank you for having me on. And it was great to be able to kind of connect with you again after all these years.
Thank you so much. I'll speak with you again, and all the best, and hope we get lots of participants.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, bye.